On this Remembrance Sunday, we not only remember the brave men and women who gave their lives in service to their countries, but we will also reflect on the ongoing cost of war. Anthem for Doomed Youth by Wilfred Owen. What passing bells for those who die as cattle, only the monstrous anger of the guns, only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle can patter out their hasty horizons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers, no bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling for them from sad shires. What candle may be held to speed them all, not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes, shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' bows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. Wilfred Edward Salter Owen, MC, Military Cross, was born on the 18th of March in 1893 and died on the 4th of November 1918 at the ripe old age of 25. He was an English poet and soldier. He died a week before the war's end. On Armistice Day, his mother would receive the notice of his death. All the while, the church bells rang in celebration of the peace agreement. 2 years ago, in 2022, a ceremony was held at his grave to commemorate his death, and a bugle played the last post. This particular bugle had belonged to a German soldier who had died. And during the war, when Wilfred came across his body, he took that bugle. A writer speculated. Perhaps he wondered who that German was and where he had come from, what family he had left behind at home. Bugles calling for them from sad shires, says his anthem for doomed youth. Calling for them both. On opposite sides of the conflict, neither of them wanted, yet united in death by a musical instrument. What a strange meeting. For so often we tend to preach on peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. And yet today we have read a rather famous narrative about the widow's mite. And I'm sure without a doubt at some stage you would have heard a sermon or many sermons that would have talked about noble sacrifice, would have challenged us to contribute more, would have been a sermon that would have talked about stewardship and how we are called to give some of our wealth to the church. And yet there is something that preachers seem to dismiss, or at least not take note of, and that is the initial commentary of Jesus that leads us to them standing outside the temple treasury. For this story is recorded both in the Gospels of Mark and Luke, and in both instances, Jesus speaks about the teachers of the law and the scribes before he makes his way to the temple. The scribes who Jesus was talking about were the lawyers. They are the ones that made up legal documents and interpreted the Jewish law. Not all of them were the focus of Jesus' condemnation, but it's clear that some, if not many, were. Jesus has a go at them for milking their positions, making a show of their own importance and enjoying the praise of others. And yet, inside and deep down, they are ruthless parasites, sucking the wealth out of the poorest to keep themselves and the system that enabled them in power and privilege. Jesus very clearly condemns this. This condemnation of the scribes' behavior is based on what Jesus builds his comments about the widow's offering. Jesus is sitting in the temple outside the treasury, the place where people give their offerings for the temple. He has watched many rich people casually toss into the coffers from their plenty. And then he sees a poor widow who has only 2 small copper coins to her name. And that's all that she has left in this world. She puts both into the temple offering box. She now has nothing. Jesus draws his disciples close and tells them the true significance of that gift and offering. I wondered about Jesus' tone. Does he tell the disciples these things, proud of her sacrifice, using her as an example as the kind of giver that he is looking for, a kind of giver that he expects us to be? Or does he draw his disciples' attention to her with a tear in his eye and anger in his voice? The warning that Jesus gives to the scribes, he gives to all people in positions of power and privilege even today. Beware of the powerful privileged for whom it's all about manipulating their image and extending their benefits and power. People who say whatever needs to be said to gain power or to stay in power, who like the sound of their own voice, who do not truly care for the needs of the poorest, the hungriest, the homeless, and the dispossessed of our world, yet will use them as pawns to shore up their own power and privilege. Unfortunately, we see this dynamic today in many of our systems and structures, where those with power and wealth manipulate public opinion, avoid accountability, and continue to benefit from the suffering of others, whether in politics, economics, or even religion. We must ask ourselves, who is paying the price for the comfort of the few? As we reflect on those who are in positions of power and privilege, those who inflame and perpetuate conflict at the greatest cost to others, but at no great cost to themselves. On this Remembrance Sunday, we not only remember the brave men and women who gave their lives in service to their countries, but we also reflect on the ongoing cost of war, often paid by those who have no voice in the halls of power. We are called as followers of Christ to confront the systems that perpetuate injustice and to speak up for those who have no voice. We are called to challenge the powerful who exploit the vulnerable, whether in the name of greed, pride, or self-preservation. And we are called to give, not just from our excess, but from our very selves, as the widow did. Not out of our surplus, but out of our sacrificial love and commitment to a kingdom that upends the world's values. In a world that continues to honor the powerful and the wealthy, we are called to remember the widow who in her poverty gave everything she had. We are called to remember the soldiers who gave their lives on battlefields for causes often they did not choose. We are called to remember that true sacrifice isn't about how much we have to give, it's about how deeply we care for the needs of others. On this Remembrance Sunday, let us not only remember, but also act. Let us challenge the systems that perpetuate that injustice and stand with the poor, the oppressed, and the forgotten. For it is only by giving of ourselves, fully and sacrificially, that we can build a world of true peace and justice. The peace and justice Christ calls us to work for every day. Amen.